Hey everyone, I hope you had a great day. Today we are looking at some new malicious compliance stories. I hope you enjoy them. If you like the video, don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps the channel to grow. And now let's start with the first story, shall we? The first story is called Much More Efficient. My coworker Brad was asked by our store manager Jessica to work a pallet of pet products as everyone would be coming in soon and decimating the aisle. Knowing the aisles are tight quarters at the store, Brad got a shopping cart. He started to load the top few layers of the pallet so he could shelve them and not block the whole aisle. Jessica decided this was not efficient enough. She told Brad in no uncertain terms to work the whole pallet. No carts except for cardboard, which we sent back to the supplier. So Brad took a cart for trash, brought out the pallet and blocked the end of the aisle. He then took individual boxes of the pallet and stocked them. It took him way longer. And it blocked traffic to the most heavily shopped aisle in the store for more than an hour. But it was much more efficient. The next story is called These Don't Count. This happened at a paintball game. When they did their standard explanation of the rules of the field, one of them was, you have to be hit by an intact paintball that breaks on you to be out. So if a paintball glances off of you and doesn't break, you are not out. If a paintball hits something else besides you and you get hit by a splatter, you are not out. It was a pretty simple rule. The field we were playing on was largely open with a number of wooden barriers. One quadrant of it was sort of a loose hedge maze. It was very early in the season and the hedges were just plain branches, no leaves or anything. One of the players on the other team had a semi-bright idea. He managed to force his way inside one of the hedges. This would keep him surrounded on all sides by it, maybe 6 to 12 inches protected him from the front and back. He could see out, more or less, and he could still play from there. I was holding a position at the top of a hill, overlooking this, and I would see our guys take a few shots at him. But the balls would break out without hitting him with a clean paintball break, as the above rule said. He would shout out that they didn't count, naturally. He wasn't occupying a very important spot on the field. And he wasn't much of a threat, as the branches kept him from moving around very efficiently. So the people I saw that failed to hit him just moved away to go find someone else. He was laughing at his own brilliance, gleefully shouting out to everyone that tried, "That doesn't count, that doesn't count." Then I had an idea. I got to the closest cover near him, a waist-high wooden barricade. I had no real trouble keeping safe while taking my own shots at him. As I mentioned, his gun was jammed inside the hedge and kept him from having any real ability to aim whatsoever. So, since I could take my time, I methodically put maybe 40 to 50 rounds aimed directly at his mask. Now, depending on the exact design of a paintball mask, if you take an unlucky hit on the breathing vents, you might end up tasting a hit of paint. If you take dozens and dozens of hits that are bursting inches before those vents, I just kept firing, yelling at him, "These don't count, you're still in." Until he forced his way out, gun high in the air, which is the sign for, "Don't shoot me, I'm out." He took his mask off long before getting off the field, which is generally not something you do before you are totally off the field. He spits out paint the whole way off, with the bottom half of his face completely soaked. I very much complied with the rules and agreed with him the whole way through. None of my shots counted, he just chose to quit of his own free will. The third story is called A Petty Lawyer. This happened in the early 2000s. We work as electricians and my coworker once had something to do at our lawyer's house. You can imagine a big house and a lot of property, everything was really nice. Except on one side of it, there was a long pile of dirt, all the way at the property line. He asked the lawyer about it and he told him that he hated that neighbor and that there once was a 10-foot fence. Well, the neighbor hated him as well and had him tear down the fence since the community regulations only allowed 6.5-foot fences. Since he is a lawyer and a mad lad, he read the regulations. He bought a lot of dirt and built this long 6.5-foot pile of dirt and installed a 6.5-foot fence, exactly as the regulations required. That's what happens if a petty lawyer hates you. The next story is called A Donut of a Man. Back when I was young and stupid, I dated an absolute donut of a man. He had no concept of taking responsibility for his actions. This included him moving in with me after 3 dates by using my spare key while I was at work. Then he hijacked my garage to store his boss's materials over Christmas without telling me. He was also a heavy drinker. And he yelled at me constantly about problems he was having with the washing machine. Now my washing machine came with me from my apartment when I moved, and I had never had a single problem with it. So when he came to me screaming about how it had shrunk all his shirts, I was very confused. He had ordered new shirts and put them in the wash. And I had washed them, and now none of them fit. After a full day of him calling me at work and harassing me about it, I discovered that they sent him the wrong size. He never apologized. Here's where I finally had enough. He came to me at 10:30 on a Saturday morning with his cricket uniform. He told me he was leaving for his game in half an hour and he needed a clean uniform. I reminded him that the minimum wash cycle on the machine was 35 minutes. So I couldn't do anything about his dirty uniform. After he finished throwing a tantrum about how it hadn't been washed for 3 weeks, he wore it for the 4th week. Seriously, how do you wear the same uniform for more than 3 days in the hot sun and not notice that it hasn't been washed? Another week passes and the uniform doesn't turn up in the laundry, so I let it go. The following Saturday he comes in again half an hour before he has to leave, saying he needs his stuff washed. Now this uniform has been sitting in his bag in the hot sun with 4 games worth of sweat and grass and dirt marinating it. You can imagine how it smelled. Sorry buddy, nothing I can do. He leaves with his dirty uniform after throwing a tantrum. Another week later, it's still in his bag in the car. The car that he uses for work, that he drives daily, that he locks when he's not in it. I couldn't get the stupid clothes out, even if I wanted to. Saturday morning rolls around, and here he is with this freaking uniform. I decide to implement malicious compliance. Knowing that I haven't got enough time to dry it, I wash the stupid thing on the shortest cycle I can. He's not only running late, but his uniform is still heavily stained, smells terrible and is soaking wet. He ends up wearing the red uniform, leaves it in his car and the crotch goes moldy. Yep, that was when I took him to a public place with lots of people and told him to get the heck out of my house. Surprisingly, he left peacefully. Although I had to throw out several boxes of his boss's stuff after almost 2 years of trying to get them to come and pick it up. The last story is called You Are Fine. I was 14, maybe 2 months into high school and in gym class. The teacher has us run forward to a point, run backward to the line, run forward to the next point, backward to the line. I tripped running backwards and threw my hands back to catch myself. Since we were doing the exercise on the rubber cement track, I feel instant pain and let out a cry. The teacher, without looking, says to go to the nurse while I sobbed in pain. I walk by myself up to the school doors and try to open the door, and I can't move my fingers. Since I was sent back by myself, I sit on the ground and sob some more. A FedEx driver pulled up, sees me, asked what's wrong, and instantly went into panic. He opened every door from the front door to the nurse. He explains how he found me, and she asks what happened. After explaining, she briefly looks at me and says, "The bell is about to ring. You are fine. Go back to class." When I asked her to just call my mom, she said no. She opens the door after me faking about not being able to move my fingers, and I make my way back to the gym. I decided, even though I had a phone and could have asked someone to call my mom, that if I was fine, I would go back to class. I managed to convince a friend of my cousin's to take my binder and books to my next class. There, I couldn't take notes or participate because I was getting dizzy from pain and wanted to puke. I had one of my friends take my books from that class to the next one, my second to last class of the day, and my cousin is in there. She sees me silently sobbing, trying to pay attention, and asks what happened. And once I explained, she called my mom in the middle of class. Not even 15 minutes later, my name is called from the speaker to go to the nurse. My cousin takes my stuff and puts it in my locker. Once I get to my mom, she explodes when she sees my wrists. They are twice the size and purple. She is screaming, asking why she wasn't called and why I went back to class. I turned to the nurse and said, "She told me there was nothing wrong and that she wouldn't call you, and to go back to class. My mom lost it. She screamed at the nurse, who only said, "I don't have X-ray vision, how would I have known?" She screamed at the principal and took me to an emergency doctor appointment. The family doc did X-rays and said I would have to go to the specialist in the morning. The wrists were so swollen that it looked like multiple fractures in both wrists, so he could not cast them. We go to the specialist, who looked at both wrists and took more X-rays. He came back in, asking what color I wanted my cast to be, since both wrists were broken. They were broken along the growth plate, so maybe permanent weakness and or pain for the rest of my life. My mother raised hell and sued the school. They refused to pay any expenses and said to sue them. She demanded that the nurse should be fired, which she was. And when the school was going to make me retake gym the next year and fail this year, she said no way was I being punished for their ineptitude. We sued the school for negligence, as we couldn't sue them for the injuries. They make you sign a document that says every injury on school grounds is not their fault. But we won that case for negligence and I got a good chunk of money from that. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel for more content. Let me know what you think about the stories and the video in general in the comment section below. And now, have a great day. Bye bye.